All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 5 of American Orthodoxy. I'm your host, Benjamin Michael, as always. Thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you for those who tuned in yesterday to some eventful theology debates that I had over on Sig's channel. He goes by Jerome now. So you guys can check that out. If you're interested, all the links for that are on my Instagram story. I have been a little bit shadow banned over here, I think, already, because I made the mistake of putting Calergy in my title of the last video, and I did remove it afterwards, and the viewership went up significantly. But I'm still trying to figure out, what things can I say as far as the title and descriptions of my videos. So I'm still trying to figure that kind of stuff out. So help me out with that. Please help me boost the live. Please like the live. Also subscribe to my channel if you have not subscribed. And I'm going to be going over some of the current events and things that have been going on. So those of you who tuned in yesterday to the theology stream, was pretty eventful. There's a lot of context there that many people aren't aware of. There's some TikTok bros, 2 of which came up and talked to us. Well, pretty much everybody on there was TikTok bros, and you could see how they were all out for blood for me. They just, I don't know what it is about me, but they basically just want to get clips to try to dunk on me. And so we were more than prepared for that. And you guys can check out that stream. Some people that are not aware of the comment or the context were saying that we went a little bit too hard on them. And what those people don't understand is that these guys run around on TikTok all day, posting clips, trying to clip farm me, posting private DMs of me. And so that's why we went a little bit hard in the paint on a couple of those guys that came up and talked to us. So you guys can check out that live and just go into it with that context. I think it was an excellent live. The vast majority of the feedback was positive. There was a few Roman Catholics and Protestants seething in the comments. Other than that, it was a very successful live. And we're definitely going to be doing more of those going forward. And so I want to talk about a couple things that happened over the course of the weekend. So a lot of you guys saw the fight on Saturday night between Hamzat and Sean Strickland. And, many of you guys know the sort of ramifications of this fight. Hamzat is a Muslim, a Chechnyan, who don't even consider themselves Russian, really. And they're a Muslim population, extremely inbred. You can literally see it in his face. And he talks a lot of shit about America and about Christianity. And even though Sean Strickland is not a Christian, he's very sympathetic to Christianity and compare it to Islam. And there was just a lot of build up to this fight. And a lot of people were frustrated with Sean after the fight just because of the way he conducted himself, sort of apologizing to Muslims and things of that nature. But that's kind of the morality of Americans. That's sort of unique, especially white Americans, I think, uniquely are that way. And so that was a reflection of that. But unfortunately, we're past the point of charity with these type of people. If you're going to be, talking that way about our religion and about our race, because he was the one who made it about race. Hamzat, it was the one who made it about race, and he made it about religion, even though Sean is an atheist. And so it wasn't Sean that started that, but then many people saw. So he was 4-1 odds, and then he won by split decision at the end of the fight. I don't know about you guys. I was going crazy when that happened. I was talking with my brother, and both of us could not believe it. So certified white boy emotion, Sean Strickland. Congratulations! I did post about him, and some of you guys saw that already. So yeah, W Strickland in the chat. W Sean. So that was a great fight on Saturday night. I'm not normally a UFC guy, but I did have to tune into that just because of the religious and really national ramifications. So a lot of you guys have been seeing lately, it's very interesting. There's been the viral virus going around, the cruise ship that has a virus on board, and supposedly there's people that are now wearing masks everywhere, kind of like during COVID. But it's really interesting. There was actually another cruise ship that's gaining less traction in the news. And I'm not going to read this because I don't want it to flag anything on YouTube, but you guys can see what happened here just a couple days ago. And particularly, you can see here that these were immigrants, 26 of which were from the Philippines, that were guilty of this, you know what? And they were all on work visas. And this got busted. It was a Disney cruise. Everybody was reporting that literally they had boarded the cruise ship. They were ready to set sail off the coast of San Diego. And then before they knew it, they were having to get off the ship, and they were given hotel rooms, of which they weren't given hotel rooms till like midnight. But you can see here, this is what they were guilty of. And hardly any of you guys have probably even seen this in the news. So that's what's interesting is, there's all these news stories about this virus and this cruise ship. But to me, this is a bigger story considering the virus. I mean, right now, it seems like the virus is a nothing burger. I'm not saying it couldn't turn into something if it gets out of control or if it's already in the atmosphere. Like, for example, John Kiriakou went on Jay Dyer's stream, and he talked about how the CIA will literally drive a truck around town, and a virus will be in the exhaust of the truck, and it will get into people's lungs, and then they test to see, okay, how many people went to the hospital for this. So we know the CIA does this stuff. So if this is one of those type of ops, then we could see this virus turn into something significant. But all I'm saying right now is this, to me, is a bigger story that literally, I mean, how many of you guys knew about this? I mean, let me know in the comments if you already knew about this. But to me, this is a bigger story, and nobody's talking about it. A bunch of immigrants on work visas get busted for a CP operation on a freaking Disney cruise. So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big story. And that was a local news network that I just had to reference. So this isn't even being reported at the federal level. It's more being reported at the local level. And I have to be the one to tell you guys about it. Okay. So some of you guys have heard about it. So that's good, at least. A lot of you guys have been seeing in the news as well all the stuff about UFOs. There was some very sad news yesterday that I saw, and I'm gonna show you guys here. There's always these gajillion ads on even these Christian sites. That's another thing. So I try to keep. Let me set up a super chat goal, because I want to first of all, I want you guys to be able to see the link. I'll go over all super chats at the end, of course. And here, I'll set it to an hour. Because I want to keep it ad free. I really want to keep my show ad free. So, by the way, memberships have been going crazy. I'm almost to 20 memberships. And when I hit 20, like I said to you guys, like I promised, I'm going to start doing members only live streams at the end of every stream. So I already have 18 members. I'm really close. So once I hit that goal of 20, the next stream after that, I'll start doing members only live streams at the end of the stream. And then, of course, I'll go over super chats at the end. But I have quite a few people reach out to me about sponsorships and things of that nature. And I really don't want to do sponsorships like during my show. I've thought about it a lot. I prayed about it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to do that. So I really appreciate the support that you guys give via memberships and via super chats. And like I said, as always, I'll go over those at the end. And this whole Mets joke, so I don't know what's going on with this. I talked about this yesterday on my stream with Sig and Nick, because Cleave to Antiquity, whose name is also Ben, is a Mets fan. And for some reason, people have been thinking that I'm a Mets fan. And so now it's like turned into like this troll. Like people are, talking to me about the Mets. And, even though I don't care about baseball, like I'm sorry. I know baseball is like an American sport and all all those things, but I genuinely do not follow baseball. I'm a diehard Packer fan. Those of you guys who know me, know that about me. So I am a diehard Packer fan. I love the Packers. So, all right. Diving into the stuff on the UFOs. This was kind of a sad story here, and I'll show you guys in a moment. I just want to make sure this is set up properly. There's like literally this. There's so many ads, it's hard to even see. Okay. So number one Mets fan. American nationalism without baseball. I know, I'm a total LARP. All right. And by the way, so ever since I made my screen bigger, I hope that you guys are able to see it better. I had a lot of complaints during my episode 3, I think it was. So I think I made it a lot bigger, so hopefully you guys can actually see it now. Let me know in the chat if you can or can't. So this was a pastor talking about a member of Congress. He says on the speakerphone, powerful member of Congress said, they're preparing to tell us that they are from another dimension, that they are our creator, and that these things, being aliens, whatever you want to call them, they were the ones who seated us here, and there is no such thing as God. Jesus was invented by them. The Bible was invented by them. So this is what a member of Congress supposedly is saying, is telling people behind closed doors, that this is going to be the messaging. And those of you that are Orthodox know that this is no surprise to us. I mean, you guys have been seeing UFOs all over the news for the last, ever since ET came out, basically. Which, by the way, St. Seraphim Rose says is demonic. Those of you that love ET, sorry to break it to you. So this is no surprise to us. See, this is what I love about reading Orthodox saints like St. Seraphim Rose and Elder Ephraim and St. Paisios, especially these modern, St. Justin Popovich, these modern saints, because they basically give us the spoilers for like what's going to happen in the world, and they explain everything to us. And so when we see things like UFOs in the news, like no Orthodox Christian is like surprised by this, because we are well read on what our saints talk about. And that's what the witness of the saints is, right? Is that each generation of saints is able to give us the answers of how to deal with the relevant issues of that day. And so that's what St. Paul is doing in the first century. That's what St. Ignatius and, St. Polycarp, that's what they're doing. St. Irenaeus, that's what they're doing in the second century. That's what every saint in every century is doing, all the way up until you get to the modern day with those modern saints that I just named, and they're giving us the answers to these things. And so I want to show you guys here some of the things that St. Seraphim Rose says. This will make it bigger. So he says this. He says, we live near the end of this fearful age of demonic triumph and rejoicing, when the eerie humanoids, another of the masks of demons, have become visible to thousands of people, and by their absurd encounters take possession of the souls of these men from whom God's grace has departed. The UFO phenomenon is a sign to Orthodox Christians to walk all the more cautiously and soberly on the path of salvation, knowing that we can be tempted and seduced not merely by false religions, but even by seemingly physical objects which just catch the eye. And this is true for, a lot of these conspiracy theories that come out. Unfortunately, they are often hijacked by those that are trying to distract us from the true faith of Orthodoxy. And there's another quote in here as well that I really like, that also summarizes this point well. He says, the conscious Orthodox Christian lives in a world that is clearly fallen, both the earth below and stars above. He knows that man is not to evolve into something higher, nor has he any reason to believe that there are higher evolved beings on other planets. But he knows well that there are indeed artificial intelligences in the universe besides himself. These are two kinds, and he strives to live so as to dwell with those who serve God. the angels, and avoid contact with others who have rejected God, and strive in their envy and malice to draw man into their misfortune. That's the goal of the demons. They've already fallen. Their goal now is to make us fall with them. He knows that man is inclined to follow error and believe in fairy tales that promise a higher state or higher beings without the struggle of Christian life. In fact, precisely as an escape from the Christian life, he distrusts his own ability to get through deception of demons and therefore clings all the more firmly to the scriptural and patristic guidelines which the Church of Christ provides for his life. Such a one has the possibility to resist the religion of the future, the religion of the Antichrist, in whatever form it may present itself. The rest of mankind, save a miracle of God, is lost. St. Seraphim actually even says, supposedly he told his godchildren, who have given testimony to this, that there would actually be a day and age when the only way that people would be saved was by martyrdom. Now, I don't think we're there yet. I think we're getting close, though. And you guys can see how fast this is compounding with AI. Now, he says artificial intelligences. He's referring to extraterrestrial. But there definitely is, a notion of this, found in both, the modern AI development and overlap with extraterrestrial life. I think there's a lot of overlap there. Now, I like the point that he makes here about how all of these things are sort of alternative methods to reaching a higher end. That's something that's very interesting about what he points out here, because what that reminds me of is St. Augustine's City of God, where he's really talking about there's the city of man and the city of God, right? These two paradigms that really, you could argue started with Cain and Abel, but really the primary starting point of this was the Tower of Babel, right? Where you have men that are trying to effectively reach divinization apart from the methods in which God has prescribed for them, right? Which is via humility. And that's ultimately what the incarnation is. It's the ultimate act of humility. Whereas trying to achieve higher ends on your own merits is the ultimate act of pride. And so you see this, there's this dichotomy, right, between the two. And that's effectively what St. Seraphim is saying here about all of the UFO stuff. Is he's saying this is just another manifestation of the city of man. These are all just things to distract you from the spiritual life, right? Walking in righteousness, and struggling through the Christian life. He's saying all these things are merely a distraction from that. So I texted Father Peter. Father Peter hears about this because I wanted to ask him, because I'm not too familiar with. There's just today Axios, because the patriarch there's a new patriarch of Georgia, and I'll show you guys here the post. I'll actually go ahead and retweet it so you guys can see. So you can see Shio III has been enthroned as the new patriarch of Georgia. Like I said, I literally saw this right before I went live. So new patriarch of Georgia. We already talked about Patriarch Elia. And I apologize to my Georgian brothers if I'm mispronouncing all these names. But we talked about Patriarch Elia last week and some of the accomplishments he did for not only the Orthodox Church in Georgia, but the Orthodox Church all over the world. And Lord willing, Patriarch Shio III will be the same, cut from the same cloth. By the way, this account is excellent. I just retweeted, excellent for topics regarding Palestine, the Israel-Palestine conflict. So you can give them a follow. And they're actually going to be helping me out prep for a debate that I'm going to be having eventually on the topic of Israel. So all that being said, congratulations, Axios, to the new patriarch of Georgia. And I'll kind of keep you guys updated on when I find out more information on his views. I will let you guys know. But it's very hard to find information about him. It seems like, he favors the Russian side of the schism, which is a good sign, of course, as Patriarch Daniel of Bulgaria did as well, and that was, of course, a good sign for him as well. So, shifting gears a little bit here. So, a lot of you guys saw my show last week, which, by the way, is finally catching the algorithm. But I did a whole show last week on replacement migration, and I walked through the entire systematized, all the way back, the systematized, attempt at replacement that dates all the way back really to the end of the 19th century, at the very least. Maybe it dates back further than that. But I start all the way with Emma Lazarus. I go through Kalergi and his plan. I go through all this on my stream last week, so you guys should go and check that out, because guess what? This came up again this week because the UN openly, like I showed in the document from 2000, right? Openly, they're talking about this replacement immigration. So this replacement migration is not a conspiracy theory. It's actually the UN's systematized attempt at replacing the European populations, and they're trying to do it with the United States. Now, this is from the actual U.S. Department of State website here, and that was probably whatever that Middle East thing was, probably some Israeli propaganda. But anyways, so this is right on their website. And they're literally, calling it replacement migration, talking about some of the things that President Trump has done. And look, I'm not delusional into thinking Trump is this super based, anti-migration, because he's been able to allow a lot of these, legal immigration reforms. Even though we have reached a net negative for the first time in modern American history, according to bookings. So I'm not delusional into thinking that this is some sort of super based area for Trump. But I will say he's significantly better than most of the alternatives, right? And this is an example of that. So the U.S. is rejecting the UN's plan for replacement migration. And Trump has gone over there. And then our goal is not to manage migration, but to foster remigration. So the U.S. government has not spoken this way ever in its history regarding remigration. I wonder if this is the first time ever that from an official government website, we've seen this word used in a positive way. Mass deportations, remigration. These are the things that we're advocating for on this show. These are the things that you guys have seen across not only the United States, but the UK and Western Europe as a whole, Eastern Europe too. I mean, Poland got a fraction of a percent of a Muslim population, and they started losing their minds. They started protesting in the streets because people were seeing one Muslim when they went out shopping, and people are rallying in the streets over this. And that's the mentality in that side of Europe. And then Western Europe has just bent the knee on these things up to this point. Now, we talked about Restore Britain the other day and how they won 10 out of 10 of their elections, which glory to God for that. But you can see here that this is just all I'm saying. Look, you see, this is literally Rubio. This is not, Mr. Based, right? This is literally a neocon that is talking about this. And so I'm not oblivious to thinking that this is super based and trust the plan. But what I am saying is that this is a sign of the sentiment change, right? The fact that a U.S. Department of State website is literally talking about this explicitly, about how we need remigration, and we're rejecting the UN and their attempt to replace our population with migrants. That's a white pill to me. Even though I don't trust the person saying it, right? I see this as a sentiment change, right? So in that sense, it's a good thing. And in that sense, it's something to be celebrated. If you guys wouldn't mind liking the live, looks like I'm still pretty shadow banned. These last 2 lives have been crazy shadow banned ever since I used Calgary in the title. I'm getting cooked on that. So if y'all wouldn't mind liking the live, and also subscribe if you are not subscribed. So we are going to get into later on the topic of mass migration from the lens of sort of like an Orthodox lens. I'm not saying my view is like the official teaching of the Orthodox Church or anything like that. I'm just saying that, hey, here's some saints that talk about this issue. Here's some saints that were in power and dealt with this issue. This is how they dealt with it. That's all I'm saying. Okay? People think that I'm like placing myself as some authority figure in the church. Like I'm no such thing. I'm no such thing. I've never presented myself that way. I've never said that's what I am. So I'm not some Orthodox leader. I'm a dude that's talking about these issues online, and I happen to know how to read saints, right? So I'm going to read to you guys, or I want to show you guys this clip. So a lot of you guys saw there was an event where the president of the World Jewish Congress spoke, and there's a couple just absolute goldmine clips from this that I want to show you guys. Well, I'm going to show you one of them. Maybe I'll show you both. Just while, what the heck, right? Today might be a little bit of a longer stream, in fact, because I have quite a bit of content. If I decide at the end to go over the Orthodox saints on migration, which I think I'm going to do. So anyways, let's listen to this clip here. Again, President of the World Jewish Congress.
Since October 7th, all Jewish organizations in the United States together have spent upwards of $600 million fighting this avalanche of anti-Semitism. I have one question. Has it helped?
$600 million being spent to combat anti-Semitism. That's what he just said.
Has all this money stopped or even slowed down the hatred against us? The answer is no. All the efforts, from TV commercials to full-page ads in newspapers, conferences, all the attempts to tell the world the facts have accomplished very little. That's because anti-Semites already have access to all the facts, and they're not interested in the facts or truth. They have their own psychotic narrative that blames Jews for everything under the sun. The Gaza war, the Jews started it. The high cost of gas, the Jews. COVID, developed in a Jewish laboratory. Global warming, it's the Jews. You are wasting your breath to reason with them. You cannot educate an anti-Semite. Case in point, since the Gaza war ended, the demonstrations haven't gone away. They've only grown more violent. Only now, they move from anti-Israel and pro-Hamas marches to targeting Jews, going to synagogues, kosher restaurants, or just walking down the street. Since October 7th,
you can't educate an anti-Semite. Can't educate an anti-Semite. Isn't that interesting? This one.
I need your help.
This one is even crazier. If you thought that was crazy, look at this one.
I intend to meet with leaders of every country. I need your help. You have to tell me in these countries what you need and how I can help. And I'll convey that to the leaders of your country.
What did he just say? Listen to this again. What did he just say?
Me in these countries what you need and how I can help. And I'll convey that to the leaders of your country.
So the president of the World Jewish Congress, which, by the way, insane that exists. We talked earlier about when the president of the ADL was talking about the 7 biggest Jewish organizations of the world, and they meet regularly, and then they meet with world leaders. But here's the president of the World Jewish Congress saying, hey, if you guys need anything, just let me know, and I will convey it to the world leaders. What? What did you just say? So if we want something done, all we have to do is tell the president of the World Jewish Congress, and then he will make sure it happens when he talks to the world leaders. That sounds like an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory to me. I don't know about you guys.
Let me tell you, I have one added strength. I'm not afraid to tell the heads of state that they're cowards. What do I lose? And frankly, when I say the World Jewish Congress, they know I'm talking for all Jews. And let me tell you something else.
That's another thing. You're talking for all Jews. Imagine if I was like, I speak for all white people. Does anybody else talk this way? He just claimed to be speaking for every single one of the 15 million Jews, or 17 million, whatever it's up to now. That's what he just claimed to be speaking for.
The fact that I'm American, and I'm talking on behalf of America and our president, gives me the power.
But if I say it, I'm an anti-Semite. If I said what he just said, if I said that the Jews are spending $600 million on a combating anti-Semitism campaign, if I said that the president of the World Jewish Congress, who represents all Jews, is strong-arming world leaders like he just said he will do, if I say that, I'm an anti-Semite. But when he admits it, now it's just no issue. Everybody sort of just goes about their day. Like I've been saying to you guys over and over and over again, they say the quiet part out loud every week. Every other day they say the quiet part out loud. That's why I play clips like this in like every show I do, because they're saying the quiet part out loud, and all I have to do, I don't even have to say it. You don't have to listen to me. Just let me show you. Just let me show you. Please like the live, guys. Please like and subscribe. That's the main thing. You know, I of course appreciate super chats. So, but the main thing is please like the live and subscribe so we can get this out there. You know, that's the big thing I care about the most, is getting the message out there. So please like and subscribe. So yesterday, I think these got declassified. Yesterday, I did some brief fact checking into that. I believe they are, at the very least, these are recent declassed documents. And here, this is one I'm not going to retweet, but I will put it in the chat for you guys so you have it. I don't know why there's a debate about double predestination going on in the comments. But I'd be happy to show anybody the quotes from St. Augustine where he explicitly says that you can be regenerated and justified and fall away. So the fact that he was some sort of like, you know, patristic Calvinist or something of that nature is just total nonsense. He says it on at least 2 occasions. So, all right, back to the topic. So these were some declassed documents. And I put, like I said, I put it in the chat there. But it's talking about the rebuilding of the temple. So this is like the Temple Mount. Many Jews claim the site should be theirs, and based on earlier presence of 2 temples. Some fundamental Christians and extremist Jews claim that a new temple must be built on this site as a precursor for the coming of the Messiah. So this is being talked about in, some declassed CIA documents. I mean, this isn't exactly news to most of us, because Pete Hegseth, literally the Secretary of Defense of the United States, explicitly has said this. Explicitly has said that it'd be a miracle if we're able to get he talks about all the things about the creation of the state of Israel, and then he goes on to say that all these miracles have happened already, such as the creation of the nation state of Israel, and then now we're going to build the 3rd temple. So this is stuff that is openly talked about by American officials, and so it's no surprise when it's found in some declassed CIA documents. And there's just things that, so on the Israel issue, so I am hesitant to do like a full episode on just Israel. I may do it eventually, but the reality is, sure, I'll show you the quotes. That's fine. I'll show you the quotes. The reality is that a lot of this stuff is pretty heavy. I don't know why this guy's debating like about double predestination right now, like not even remotely related to the topic. Like, just some of these people just spurg out constantly, like, and just have no ability. Like, who in their right mind goes into a YouTube live about Thomas Massie, Israel, and mass migration and starts talking about double predestination? Does that sound like a mentally stable person to you? Is that a mentally stable person? Like, that's just, like, what are you doing? So anyways, back to the topic. So a lot of the stuff about Israel that I want to go over with you guys is it's very dense, and so I don't want to do like a whole episode on it because I feel almost like it would be like too much. It'd be like too much info for like one. So I sort of try to give you guys kind of bite-sized, so that you can, those of you who aren't aware of this stuff, can sort of relay this information and also just be educated on it. This is crazy. Sometimes this stuff is just insane. So, Israeli funded social media campaign, right? So this was real. This wasn't a meme, right? Like, it's literally called the Esther Project. Was literally $7,000 a post to improve Israel's public image and sway American opinion during Gaza conflict from July to November 2024. So it gives the 900,000 figure here, but then you see down. By the way, 7,000 literally. So someone broke down, like, with inflation, how this $7,000 is literally 30 pieces of silver. Literally 30 pieces of silver when adjusted for inflation. So you can betray Christ for the hefty gift of $7,000 or 30 pieces of silver. It's basically what's going on here. A separate Project 545, a separate larger effort involving a 145 million budget in shekels to influence U.S. public opinion through AI, bot programs, and targeted advertising. Imagine if Russia did this. Imagine for a second if Russia did this. If Russia was spending $145 million in social media campaigns through AI, bots, targeted advertising, paying $7,000 a post to American social media influencers. Imagine if Russia was doing that. It would be all over the news. It would be all anybody's talking about. And yet, here's a foreign nation, a nation not named America, that is doing that. How many of you guys even knew about this social media campaign? How many of you guys even knew about this? So this is hardly talked about. There's also a concept that I wasn't planning on going into this. There's a concept called Hasbara. This was invented after a the term dates back to the early 1900s, but it really was popularized after several of their bombing campaigns that ended up killing a lot of civilians. So again, something unique to the Israeli people that nobody else does is they literally have a term for basically apologetics, basically Israel apologetics. That's basically what this is. Hasbara, translating to literally explaining, refers to Israel's public diplomacy, strategic communication, international public relations efforts. It aims to explain, justify, and promote Israeli government policies and actions, often in response to criticism or conflict, using mass media, social media, grassroots advocacy. And they train people in this. So, in fact, there was a show, and again, I wasn't planning on going into this. But there was literally a show, I believe it was called The Ambassador. That basically was popularized in Israel. It's like, so, wow, this is like insanely hard to find, but I finally found it. So, 2004 Israeli reality TV show called The Ambassador, where 14 contestants competed to become a public relations representative for Israel in New York. The show aimed to train and select the best spin doctor to conduct Hasbara to improve Israel's image abroad, particularly amid criticism. So, an entire show for finding somebody that can be good enough to conduct Hasbara, which I was just explaining, to improve Israel's image abroad in New York. Who does this? Who does this stuff? Again, just swap Israel for Russia and tell me if they would get away with this. Tell me if Russia would get away with something like this. The answer is no. The answer is, of course, no. There's so in the UN, we've talked a lot about the UN regarding migration. But there's something called P5, the P5 veto. And there's 5 nations that basically have veto power for UN votes. And the United States has employed this veto power between like 80 and 90 times. Like since it, I think it started in 1970. Oh, no, sorry. Way earlier than that. I must have been thinking of something else. 1945. So P5, maybe the P5 veto didn't start till then. Maybe they had the P5, the 5 nations. Yeah, so, okay. So, yeah, in 1945 is when the first veto, sorry, 1946 was the first veto. So there's this veto power, basically, that these 5 nations have, and the United States is one of them, over UN votes. And again, the United States has employed this veto power 80 or 90 times since it first started in the 1940s. Well, about 45 to 50 of those votes, those vetoes, by the United States were something regarding Israel. So over half. So we've used this veto power against the United Nations, again, 90-ish times, roughly, since the 1940s. And over half of them were something regarding Israel. Over half. You guys get, again, it's called P5. Look up the P5 veto. Look up how many times the United States has employed it. Look up how many times we've employed it specifically for Israel. You're going to see that it's over half. It's over half. So that means the UN already basically had voted on this, voted on something, and was in favor of it. And the US said no by just because Israel was involved and they didn't like what the vote was. And you guys are going to see this as I dive into this, as I dive deep into the Israel issue over the course of this episode and various other episodes. You guys are going to see, that there is a disparity between how the rest of the world, especially the West, or including the West, not just the West, but how the rest of the world views Israel and how the United States views Israel. We are like sort of on our own on this issue. And it's primarily because of Christian Zionism. That's what's unique to America. It's Christian Zionism. I mean, these guys literally brag about their influence over Israel, or excuse me, over the United States. So, I mean, in 2007, for example, before the election, the following year, there was literally a story in Jewish Week where a man named Joshua Mitnick was bragging. He was bragging that effectively this was a contest to see which candidate was going to fight for Israel more. That's what the Jews were saying about the 2008 election openly. They were saying this is really just a contest. It's really just a contest who can show that they are going to be a better advocate for Israel. And you know, it wasn't until really the last couple years when we've seen AIPAC getting exposed. AIPAC is not the only Israeli lobby, by the way. AIPAC just gets away with a lot more because they're not registered under FARA. But there's a quote here regarding AIPAC that I think is very interesting. In 2005, AIPAC official Stephen Rosen told journalist Jeffrey Goldberg that he would obtain the signatures of 70 U.S. senators on a napkin within 24 hours. So he's bragging. He's literally bragging that if he needed to, he could get the signatures of 70 different senators in 24 hours or less. That's what an AIPAC official is bragging. Now, you guys will often hear a lot of people that will bring up like CAIR CARE, which is like a Muslim lobby, or other various lobbies like the Armenian lobby and things of that nature. There's foreign lobbying all throughout the United States. No one's denying that. The difference is that 98% of AIPAC-backed candidates get elected. No other lobby comes even close. Not even close. The closest thing are some of the pro-Second Amendment lobbies, but those only are really in favor of the Republicans. The Republicans and then the libertarian-leaning candidates. The AIPAC is both. It is a uniparty lobby, meaning that, yes, it is slightly in favor. I think it's about 60-40, a little bit more. I think it's 62-38 in favor of the Republicans. But AIPAC is a uniparty lobbying group, and it still has a 98% success rate. Don't believe me? Well, aren't you in for a treat?
It's the infusion of foreign affairs that's taking the...
This is the official AIPAC YouTube channel, by the way. Official AIPAC YouTube channel.
It's the infusion of foreign affairs that's taking the 2024 race into an entirely new phase.
Watch this entire video. But did you hear what she just said? I'm a firm believer that no candidate wins an election on their own. What does she mean by that? In the context of AIPAC. In the context of 98% of candidates, 98% of candidates backed by AIPAC get elected. 98%. And what she said is, as I dive into this Thomas Massie stuff, what she just said is very crucial to understanding the problems with democracy. Because I'm sorry, but a congressional candidate whose opponent has received $10 million from billionaires who don't even live in America, and that's the only reason he has any chance against Massie in this upcoming primary on May 19th. The only reason why Massie's opponent has any chance is because he's received funding from billionaires that don't even live in America, that live and make their living off of China, and they live in Israel. They were born in Israel, like Miriam Adelson, who's funding Massie's opponents. That's not democracy. Not when Massie's average donation has been $94. So Massie's average donation this campaign has been $94. It's like grandmas who are scraping together their last pennies to donate to Massie. And there's maps that show his donation map across the entire country. And literally, it's not just isolated to one area. You'd think it would be isolated just to Kentucky. It's not. It's across the entire U.S. So this is literally the epitome. This election is the epitome of a man of the people versus a man of the billionaires. And I'm going to go line by line through a lot of the Massie propaganda, the anti-Massie propaganda, because it is very prevalent here, unfortunately. So as we shift gears into that, how are you guys doing? Do we still have people spurging out in the comments over predestination? Oh, how are you guys doing? Looks like we have a little bit better viewership this time. I think I'm still getting out of the shadow ban from my Saturday stream. So if you guys wouldn't mind, please help like the live, and subscribe. I have memberships up. Like I said, I'm almost to the 20 members mark, and then I'm going to start doing members only streams at the end of every stream. So if you guys are interested in being part of that, supporting me that way. And then obviously super chats, of which I will go over at the end. So I want to go line by line through a tweet that is it's a lot of anti-Massie stuff here. I'm going to try to make this big enough here for you guys to see. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this set up here for you guys. Because there is a lot of anti-Massie propaganda. And also I'm going to go through his opponent as well. I should have mods in here that can take care of, there should be 3 mods that can take care of banning people that need to be banned. If I need to add mods, Evan, remind me later to make you a mod. And then if anybody else is interested in being a mod, let me know. All right. So a lot of you guys probably saw this tweet that had a lot of anti-Massie propaganda. So I want to just go sort of line by line through this. So for the wall, just prefacing before I go through this, right? So these are supposedly things, and by the way, no hate on Blake. Blake, he's a Roman Catholic guy. He's been a friend of mine for the better part of a decade. So I mean, he's a good guy. And for I would say we're 95% in agreement. I just firmly disagree. Yeah, make sure to DM me later, guys, if you want to be a mod. I just firmly disagree with his stance on Massie, and the best argument is just to talk about his opponent, which I will. But first, I do want to address these things. So going into this, a lot of these things that he supposedly voted against or voted for, these were things that were baked in to other bills, right? So like, you have to understand, when Congress votes on a bill, almost like the vast majority of the time, there's all these other things that are baked into the bill. And so Massie will get ostracized by people for voting against these things, right? For voting against, the wall, for example, or ICE funding or whatever, when in reality, there's other things that are baked into these bills, and that's what he's actually voting against. So, and that is the case for this first one, voting against the wall, because he's actually co-sponsored bills like the Close Biden's Border Act, which was $15 billion in wall funding for the fiscal year 19 appropriations. So this is something that that he has been in favor of at times, right? It's just that in this case, he voted against it because he believed that Trump's funding was executive overreach. That's basically his argument, is that, hey, if we give the president all this power, when we get a bad president, it's going to backfire. So it needs to go through the right channels. Now, you can agree or disagree with that. That's fine, but that's his justification. ICE funding, the same bill also funded the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which has been known to cause a substantial amount of censorship, right? So the CISA Center, in its role in flagging online mis- and malinformation related to elections and COVID-19. So this bill also included those things, right? And so that's what he was actually voting against in supposedly the ICE funding. Voting against E-Verify. So this policy creates a federal database requiring government permission for every American to work. So this is, he believed, again, government overreach that would affect not just immigrants, but every American. Increasing taxes, and these next couple here. So I think all the way down to the Planned Parenthood was all part of the big, beautiful bill, which had all kinds of things baked in. So I don't need to go line by line on the big, beautiful bill, but effectively what he was actually voting against was all the things that were baked into it that he didn't like, not necessarily these particular things. Warrants on deportations. Again, so this was again in the name of government overreach that he voted against this, voted in favor of warrants. He voted against not requiring it, of course. And this was again in the name of government overreach, which again, like, you can disagree with him, but that was his justification. It was not subversive. Again, with ICE funding, same thing as before. Legal immigration. So he has talked about mitigating H-1B, right? So yes, he is a little bit libertarian in his view on migration, but he has addressed the abuse that occurs in these events, right? In these particular bills. So and then censuring radical leftists again in the name of government overreach. He was against this, and I don't agree with that. I disagree with him on that. I think we do need to strong arm these people, but you can understand at least where he's coming from, that, hey, like, he doesn't trust the government, and so he's opposed to it. The government in its current state is not trustworthy. That's all he's saying. Non-interventionism is actually based. So I don't know what you're talking about here, Blake. I think non-interventionism is good. This just seems very petty, blaming Trump's rhetoric for Charlie Kirk's assassination. Okay. Ruining the lives of 4 random men from FBI lineup, falsely accusing them of involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, look, like, it's unfortunate. These guys got caught in the crosshairs, and that's unfortunate. But it's because of Massie that anybody has been exposed. Like, people like Wexner, who did actually get exposed as a result of Massie, right? And by the way, like, there's still no arrests, even though there's been arrests, across the world. There's been multiple arrests across the world in regards to, collusion with Epstein. But for some reason, here in the United States, there has yet to be any arrests. So that's obviously concerning. And Massie has been at the forefront of combating that. As far as this stuff is all in regards to tariffs. So tariffs, I am in favor of. I would just concede these. I mean, these are not great. That he has a libertarian view of free market trade. So he's being consistent in his paradigm. That's the thing about Massie too, is like, even if you disagree with him, you can at least grant to him that he has a consistent paradigm in which he does actually stand up for what he believes in, right? And so the reason why he opposes the tariffs is because he's a free market guy, which, again, not ideal, but he's being consistent to his values and to his morals. This is dumb. Being funded by far left, third world Islamists. Again, average donation $94. So just because some people that are bad are giving him money, that is like literally pennies compared to his opponent, who's getting millions and millions and millions, right, from the likes of Miriam Adelson, being praised by the likes of Jasmine Crockett, AOC, blah blah blah. So, like, I mean, Anna Kasparian has actually done a lot of good work as far as the Israel stuff. Same with Cenk. I can't believe I'm saying that, but. In light of all their other views, they suck. Obviously, they're pro-white replacement and things of that nature. They're anti-Christian, pro-Muslim, things of that. So that's not good. But it's like, just because you're praised by bad people, like, everybody is praised by bad people. Like, what are you talking about? It's just a dumb argument. Having a fan base made up almost entirely of leftists, that's nonsense. He has a substantial population on the right, such as myself, who support him. Taking money from IPAC, group working with Democrats. So again, with the $94 thing, like, just because he's taking money from these groups, like, it's pennies compared to what his opponent has taken. And this is evident in the fact that the average donation is only $94 to his campaign. And that's including, like, all of the, like, substantial, billionaires that have supposedly donated to him. Trashing President Trump, calling him a pedo on Twitter, year and a half, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Again, like, just more nonsense that doesn't matter. So that's some of the anti-Massie propaganda that I just went line by line on. There's also no evidence that he's actually a Mason. Like I said in my last stream, the closest thing to evidence that he is a Mason is that he has ties to a youth organization that also has ties to Masonry. But like the reason why, so I would say, if I had to justify, like, the reason for my support of him is really twofold. First of all, It's really his moral character, and you can see this with his exposing of AIPAC, right? Which, a couple of years ago there was the famous clip on Tucker where he's talking about how everybody has an AIPAC guy, right? This is a clip that has gone, ultra viral, and just about everybody has seen it at this point. And, that was really, for a lot of us on the right, that was the first time like seeing somebody really call this out. So even if you knew about AIPAC before, like, did you really see it being talked about on the right? I mean, Tucker has brought this up. Tucker has been going to GOP events for decades and decades. And openly, they talk about Israel at these events. Constantly. They're constantly talking about Israel. And he never even thought twice about it. So, this was a watershed moment in right-wing politics. Everybody up to this point, just gets completely ostracized and effectively kicked out of the GOP over this issue. And when Massie exposed it, it finally brought to light. The abuse that is happening in this organization. So that's the first thing, is his moral character. And then the second is just his opponent, Ed Gallerine. Ed Gallerine stands for nothing. His opponent is a total disaster. When Trump got elected the first time, he literally became an independent. So this guy becomes an independent the first time that Trump gets elected. Basically, signaling that he doesn't stand for what Trump was running. And when Trump ran in 2015, he's openly telling Jewish donors he doesn't want their money. He's the one who really started the America First movement, right? And so someone that was opposed to Trump's first term, at least what he ran on, you don't have to believe that he ran, that he had a good presidency his first term to recognize that what he ran on was good. Everything that he was running on his first term was good. So you don't have to agree with his policies in his first term to acknowledge that. And this guy, Massie's opponent, literally abandoned ship. He abandoned ship. He was basically a never-Trumper. He abandoned ship in 2016, literally registered as an independent. Like he unregistered as a Republican. Then, as soon as Biden gets elected in 2021, he comes crawling back, and now he's a Republican again. As soon as Biden got elected. So as soon as Trump loses the 2020 election, then this guy, Massie's opponent, comes crawling back and registers as a Republican again. So he's spineless. He's weak. He's not even on the Right to Life voter guide. He refused to fill out. So he's a Republican, right? Supposedly now. And he's very weak on the pro-life issue. By the way, Massie, so even though Massie is a libertarian of sorts, he's extremely pro-life. He's extremely strong on the pro-life issue. And this guy, his opponent, is very weak. Doesn't fill out questionnaires. He gets hunted down by all these pro-life orgs who've said that he won't engage with them. He's not on the Right to Life voter guide, which, like every Republican is on this. So he's so spineless that he won't even come out and say that he's really pro-life, at least not recently. Massie has offered, by the way, this guy is Ed Gallerine. He's literally the challenger. He's the challenger. And usually, like we see with Fishback and Byron, the challenger usually is the one who wants to debate. Massie has offered to debate this guy 8 times, and the guy has no-showed or blew him off every single time. Every single time. There's even rumors out there that he's using AI to write his posts because people are running it through AI checkers, and it's coming out as AI. So, sorry, but yeah, if you're running, and you have a challenger who isn't even willing to debate with you? Come on, man. Spineless. Effectively the vast majority of the $10 million they've raised, and it's probably well over 10 million now as we're getting closer to the election. It's probably well over 10 million. But at the vast majority of that is from Israel lobbies. It's from Israel lobbies. It's not from regular, average Joe Americans like it is for Massie. I mean, you can see his donation map here. So I retweeted this because this just really is the epitome of this, right? So, by the way, I've retweeted this. You guys can go, if you feel inclined to donate to him, you can go donate to him because this is his election map. I mean, look at this. He's getting money from the entire U.S., all over the U.S., little donations. These are not billionaires. These are average Joe Americans who are voting for this man. And you have this campaign. For some reason, there's these guys like Cat Turd on the right that are just on an absolute rampage, an anti-Massie rampage, and they're waiting. They are chomping at the bit for May 19th so they can celebrate his loss. They don't actually know, they don't know anything about his opponent. They don't care. They don't care that he's a spineless Israeli puppet. They don't give a shit. All they care about is getting Massie out of office because they're neocons. They stand for nothing except globalism and Israel first policies, and that's why they hate Massie so much. Massie doesn't even hate Israel. Honestly, he's not strong enough on the issue, in my opinion. And yet these people hate him this much simply because he doesn't have an Israel first agenda. Massie is the embodiment of America first policies. At least the closest thing to it. He's the closest thing to it in office currently. If Fishback gets elected, I think that, he would be someone in public office that certainly would fall into that category. So, and I just want to land this plane on, the topic of democracy, because what this campaign is showing is just the insane double standard, right, that there is on democracy. We get told that democracy is supposedly empowering the people, and yet here we have a campaign being manipulated. So we have social media campaigns of $150 million from foreign countries that are influencing American politics, that are influencing public opinion, and then we have millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, actually billions of dollars, that are coming in from foreign lobbying efforts, right? That are, again, influencing American politics. So that's democracy. Supposedly, that's empowering the people. That's what we're spreading all over the world. We're spreading freedom and democracy. And this is the democracy in question. Because guess what? When I run for office, I'm going to have money backing me. If you don't have money backing you, you don't stand a chance. How is that democracy? How is that democracy? When you need to be wealthy or have wealthy people who are basically leveraging you as a politician for policies that are in favor of whatever their business or their foreign agenda is. That's democracy? That's giving power to the people? Really? And this is why, for the vast majority of American history, people talk about the women's right to vote, but the reality is most men didn't have the right to vote either until about 20 years before women got the right to vote. It was a very specific minority of men, landowning men, that voted. That was the democracy in America. So this rule of the masses form of democracy is clearly a failed experiment. It's easily manipulated by foreign interests, by billionaires. If I drive my truck into a small town and everybody in the town votes that that truck now belongs to them, is that fair? Does that make sense? But that's rule of the masses. That's mob rule. So mob rule does not work. It doesn't work. Now, no system is perfect, but it's very clear that this system is a failed experiment. That is very clear. That is very evident. So that is the rundown on Thomas Massie. Again, I am not sitting here and claiming that Massie is perfect. And yes, I have question marks about Fishback as well. Comments are talking about Fishback. I have question marks about him as well. However, listen, like, you have to understand, like, even if you don't trust these people, they're all part of the Overton window shift, right? Everybody is pushing that pendulum further and further away from foreign interests. They're pushing it further and further towards America first policies, America only policies right now, because that's what we really need right now. America only is really a better policy marker, because right now Americans are struggling to such an extent that it has to be America only right now. If you are a father and your children are starving, your wife is starving and sick, you have to focus on your family only in that time. That it has to be pretty much your only priority is your family and your family's well-being. That's the state of America right now. So all of these people, whether it be Massie or whether it be Fishback, they are a sign of where the wind is blowing. The State Department openly talking about replacement migration and how it's happening here in America and how we're rejecting it. And the only migration we want is remigration. I don't trust Marco Rubio, but I don't I don't know how I feel about some of these other candidates. But what I can tell you is that all of these are all signs of the sentiment change. And that's white pilling. That is white pilling. So glory to God for that. All right, we're going to shift into the final part of the stream, which maybe it's the main event for you guys, maybe it's not, and that is the topic of mass migration from the lens of Orthodox saints. And I just want to again point out, and today is going to be sort of wave tops more than anything. Then a deep dive. I think I will eventually do a more deep dive into this, but I do want to bring a lot of my threads over here, and so I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be showing you guys my thread on this topic, because, and look, like, before I dive into this, I want to say again that I'm not saying that I'm some sort of Orthodox authority. I'm an Orthodox Christian, and I know how to read. And I think that this topic is one that we should listen to the saints on, because I think there's a lot of virtue signaling out there that is just simply untrue. This has been a great stream, guys, so far. Obviously, still got a decent amount left here. But please subscribe to my channel. That's the main thing. Please subscribe to my channel. Like I said, memberships are now live over here. Please subscribe, and please like the live. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the super chats, guys. Let me pin these so that I go over them at the end. I'm going to be going over super chats in about 30 minutes. So if you want to get super chats in, you can do that now. Maybe I'll set a goal here. Oh, Father Peter texted me back. So for those of you who were not at the beginning of the stream, glory to God, Axios, because there's a new patriarch in Georgia that has been elected. And Father Peter here's, who many of you guys respect, Orthodox Ethos, he said to me, I heard good things. I think he's solid. I know he's against the fake church of Ukraine. So glory to God for that. That is great news to hear. And I trust Father Peter's take on that. So that is great to hear that now we have a bulwark patriarch really in Georgia and Bulgaria. So glory to God for that. But how are you guys doing? You guys doing all right? Christ is risen to all my dear brothers and sisters. The main reason I do the super chat goals is just so you guys can find the link easier. I don't really care about meeting the goals, but just for those of you who are interested in supporting me, I just created it so you guys can see the link better. So far, I was really excited for this show today, just because I wanted to clear up a lot of. First of all, I feel like I gave you guys some gifts on Israel, because look, framing is important, right? Like when we talk about these issues, like it is very important. Like framing is extremely important. We need to be able to frame it in such a way that we don't come across as total quack jobs for normies, because at the end of the day, we need to get normies on our side. I just went on this whole rant about democracy, but it's like, hey, that's our current system, so we need to be able to get these people on our side. And so that means that we need to win over normies, which is why I show you guys all of the receipts, and we still have people in the comments arguing over double predestination, which is just insane. All right. So you guys, we're going to go over this thread here. And I do want to read one more time. One more time, I want to read, because this quote by, whoa, uh-oh. That was weird. TV just went out for a second there. Somebody doesn't want us to read this. Who is it? Who could it be? Curious. Isn't that curious? Can you guys see this all right? Today I'm mogging with my hair out. I don't know where my mods are. They're supposed to, I don't know where my mods are. There, I had to do it myself. I have 3. Thank you for the super chats. I have 3 mods, and I don't know where they're at. So, okay. I sound better? I am. I'm actually not sick anymore. Finally. No more coughing. So that's good. Viewership today has been a little better than Saturday. Hopefully we can get back to our normal viewership by Thursday, and at least by Saturday. We'll see. I might be cooked for the time being. Next week, I'm going to start. I think I'm going to start doing call-ins next week. Okay, thanks for DMing me. Okay, I'll look over those of you who DM me. No promises, but I will look over them, and probably will add a couple of you guys as mods. Okay. So, and those of you that are watching the stream back, please like the video and subscribe. Get it out to the algorithm. I really appreciate that. So, Father Athanasios, I've read this quote before, and I just want to show you guys again, highly respected elder who just proposed in 2006 and will inevitably be canonized. And let me go ahead and copy this into so he says this: children, we continue our theme of love for our homeland and compatriots. We said this last time, the homeland is something that is determined by the word of God. Homeland is determined by the word of God. In other words, God himself wants there to be borders of people and consequently individual homelands. Thus, our whole earth is divided into homelands that have borders. So he's describing homogeneity. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about homogeneity. But while God pays attention to this point that I'm about to tell you, while God determines borders for the peoples, as the Apostle Paul says to the Athenians, he has appointed times and demarcations for their dwellings. The boundaries are the borders, and God also arranges how long a people will live. In other words, he defines the preordained times. Well, what I want you to notice now is this. On the contrary, so this is on the contrary to God's ordination. That's what he's about to say. On the contrary, here, be careful. It is very important. What he's about to say is really important. The Antichrist will break down the borders of peoples, and he will become the ruler of the world over the whole earth. This is very important. We expect this, in fact, with the argument that because there are wars between peoples, peoples must unite. There must be no borders so that there is no war. So he's saying they're going to argue for getting rid of borders because we all got to unite. There can't be any more war, nor more borders. We all have to just be one, man. But this is the work of the Antichrist. This is determined for us as the fathers interpret the Holy Bible. So if you see what is happening now in Europe, the next step is to have no borders. So he's saying, so the people that argue this is about illegal immigration, which I've refuted over and over and over again, total nonsense, because he says the next step, meaning building on their current policies, which policies of amnesty, policies of mass legal migration, then you will say the Antichrist is coming. All of this preparation is for the kingdom, the empire of the Antichrist. So, what Father Athanasios is saying here is very clear that Europe, the West, is going to be overrun by peoples that don't belong there, and that's the work of the Antichrist. And he's saying the next step after the current policies is open borders. And that's already effectively happening in Europe. Effectively, they already have open borders, just like we did under Biden. So, that's probably the best comprehensive quote. Now I want to dive into the policies, right? So Emperor St. Justinian in 539 literally created an office, a particular office stationed at Constantinople, right, that investigated newcomers' origins, reasons for coming, social status, and usefulness. So this Emperor St. Justinian, right, Emperor St. Justinian is the one who, and by the way, I pointed out this out before, but he is a saint in the Eastern Catholic Church, quote unquote, Byzantine Catholic. But anyways, he is a saint, obviously in our church. He's a saint in the Byzantine Catholic Church, and Pope Agatho, in his supposedly infallible letter, according to Roman Catholics, literally says that he is a saint to be venerated by all nations. So, so Emperor Saint Justinian is a pretty significant, saint. And you can see like some of the policies here. This dives deep into it. So like, for example, they didn't get citizenship. That's another thing too that we have watered down in America is the concept of citizenship. We basically it's a piece of paper now, and that's not what it was in ancient times. In every great empire, that's not what it was. So this does a deep dive into some of the Roman immigration policies, particularly, and then the Byzantine policies under saints and holy emperors, right? That are being influenced by the church, that are Christians, and literally saints themselves. There was even a bureau of barbarians. They created a bureau of barbarians. Byzantines used forced population transfers, remigration, and the theme system. Defeated barbarian groups who were broken up, resettled in depopulated border areas such as farmers' militia under strict imperial oversight. So basically, these people were remigrated and then under strict imperial oversight. Disarmed or dispersed to dilute tribal loyalties and required to convert or assimilate. So this is important. So under Byzantine policy, these people were required to either convert or at the very least assimilate. At the bare minimum, you got to assimilate to the Byzantine culture, into Orthodox Roman society. Autonomous mass settlements were prohibited, so you couldn't have homogeneity of your own group within the empire. That's basically what this is saying. They led to rebellions or loss of control. Exactly. So this is what you see happening in like places like Dearborn, Michigan, which are basically like homogenous Muslim cities at this point. By the way, I'm pretty sure it's Henry Ford's hometown is Dearborn, Michigan. Am I tripping on that, or is that true? Yeah, Dearborn, Michigan. So that's a big middle finger to him. The fact that that's turned into a Muslim city. Autonomous mass settlements were prohibited, so that's very important. They led to rebellions, loss of control. The Bureau of Barbarians, it's kind of base. We need to bring that back. Handled foreign intelligence and diplomacy to monitor threats. Cultural superiority was explicit. Non-Romans were barbarians until they adopted Orthodox Christianity. Law, loyalty, mass migration was seen as a security demographic risk, and this is all covered in these links that I include in the thread. And let me I didn't put this in the chat. So let me put this in the chat for you guys. So this was Byzantine policy. Autonomous mass settlements are prohibited, right? Non-Romans were considered barbarians until they adopted Orthodox Christianity, law, and loyalty. So you can't have your own Sharia law bullshit. Nope. Get out of here. You got to adopt our law. You got to submit to our law. You got to assimilate. Can't have your own homogenous zones. And by the way, Codriano talks about this, how literally all the other immigrants from Europe that would come to Romania, they had no problem doing this. They integrated into the society. They had no problem integrating, and it was only the Jews. So when the Jews came to Romania, they formed their own little tribes. They would set up Jewish merchants right next to Romanian merchants, and then they would have Jewish organizations funding those merchants so that their prices could be lower, so that they could put the Romanians out of business. This is the type of nonsense that we're not going to be putting up with. You're not going to come to our country and create a little tribe and then start funding your tribe to put our own people out of business. That's not happening. That's not happening. So, and it's clear under Byzantine law that this was impossible. What about Tsarist Russia? So, Tsarist Russia, the policy specifically, and this is, I mean, anybody, like, people understand that Russians care about identity preserving policies. Is no surprise that the Russian Synod of 2000 that I've referenced many times explicitly talks about this, and they care a lot about preserving their ethnic heritage and their policies under various saints like Tsar St. Nicholas. So the Pale of Settlement, which originally was established under Catherine the Great, but Tsar St. Nicholas upheld it. Jews were legally confined to Western provinces. They were barred from core Russian heartlands, and most rural villages and certain cities like Kiev, Moscow, which, by the way, Kiev is Russia. Oh boy, Val is going to come after me for that one. And this prevented economic, cultural competition with Russian merchants, limited Jewish influence in Orthodox core, and treated their presence as a controlled exception rather than open integration. Expulsions from interior Russia occurred as late as 1891. So, anyways, upheld by Orthodox saints. And then you can read about it here in this link. And like I said, I dropped the link in the chat for you guys if you want to look through this whole thread. Other foreigners faced land ownership bans, passport visa controls, and selective entry. That's another thing too. These states under Orthodox Christian leadership had extremely strict border control. Russians became a filtering state. Immigration was limited to useful and assimilable groups. That's very important. Assimilable groups. I'm sorry, but a Muslim cannot assimilate to America, for example. It's impossible. It's completely against the entire ethos of their religion. So a Muslim is not assimilable. Neither is a Hindu. Non-citizens struggled with property and deed rights. Immigration was also heavily restricted. Focus was on demographic control in favor of Russian settlements and in frontiers via Russification. So the point is that under Tsar St. Nicholas and other czars that were Orthodox, their priority, yeah, much love to Val. Val is awesome. I love Val. I just know he's going to come after me for that one. The priority was the preservation of their national identity under Orthodox czars and emperors. This is the Russian Synod of 2000, again, that I've quoted many times. Christian patriotism may be expressed at the same time with regard to a nation as an ethnic community. So a nation is an ethnic community, and as a community of its citizens. The Orthodox Christian is called to love his fatherland, which is a territorial dimension, and his brothers by blood who live everywhere in the world. This love is one of the ways of fulfilling God's commandment of love to one's neighbor, which includes love to one's family, fellow tribesmen, and fellow citizens. So that's the order amoris right there. The patriotism of the Orthodox Christian should be active. It is manifested when he defends his fatherland against an enemy, works for the good of the motherland, cares for the good order of people's life through, among other things, participation in the affairs of government. The Christian is called to preserve and develop national culture and people's self-awareness. I'll have to look into the mirror system. Not familiar. All right. Often cited in Scripture are a couple verses, but primarily this one: the foreigner who resides among you will rise higher. This we'll get into the biblical arguments they use against us. This is arguments that support what I'm saying here: that a foreigner who resides among you will rise higher and higher above you, while you sink lower and lower. He will lend to you, but you will not lend to him. He will be the head, and you will be the tail. So it's saying that when foreigners enter into your land, and become the majority and become leaders like we're having happen with Muslims becoming our own leaders, our own political leaders. They're showing up at our door like they are in the UK in their stupid hijab, telling us we can't like certain memes on social media. That's what this is talking about. That's what this is talking about. And it's a judgment. It's a judgment. We see this in Isaiah 1 as well. It's a judgment against, and Ezekiel and Jeremiah. When foreigners come into your land and become the majority, it is a judgment against you. So these are the common verses that are weaponized against us. Exodus 22:21, do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner. Leviticus 19, when a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself. For you were foreigners in Egypt. Deuteronomy 10. And you are to love those who are foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt. So, look, these are basically just commands. Like, all they're saying is, like, don't treat foreigners like shit. Like, that's all it's saying, which nobody's advocating for. First of all, why would it be a bad thing for a foreigner to live in their own homeland? This is what I don't understand. You have, for example, like videos of Mexicans who get deported back to Mexico where they've been flying their flag. So they've been here in the United States, flying their Mexican flag, talking about how much they hate America, and then we deport them back to Mexico, which they just said they love, and they're crashing out over it. So why is it considered unloving? Why has it been framed that it's unloving to send somebody back to literally their homeland that they're supposedly proud of, the flag they're waving, while completely crashing out on our country, dragging our country's name through the mud? And it's unloving to simply send these people back. That's not mistreatment of a foreigner. Sorry, sending a foreigner back to the country, their home country, that is not mistreatment of a foreigner. Especially if they came here illegally, which is the case of every single one of these Mexicans that have been deported so far. Or in the case of my remigration plan, which I went over last time, that involves particularly criminals. So that's not mistreatment. That's not mistreatment. So Israel itself had borders. Like, people, you couldn't just come and go. There was actually borders. There was actually a place that made up, each tribe, for example. Each tribe had their own borders, right? So anyways, I go over the full response here, but effectively, like, none of these verses have anything to do with immigration, really. Really, they have no relevance to immigration. And like the Ammonites and Moabites were barred for generations. Like certain groups weren't even allowed to come at all. And then look what they did to the Canaanites, for example, as far as what they did to hostile nations. So what about modern day? So sometimes we hear from these pagan LARPers, oh, like, why are you citing me a dead guy? What do your current church leadership say? So I like to make sure I include, like, that this is a sentiment that is prevalent today. This is one of the main differences between us and the Roman Catholic Church and the Protestants too. Is the Protestants and the Roman Catholics will cite these popes from like 300 years ago, or the reformers, from hundreds and hundreds of years ago. We're citing people now. This is an archbishop right now who says, we want to live in our own land. We want to live in our own faith. We want to live in our own lineage. We have the right to demand this and to expect that the state will provide all the necessary conditions for it, including the elimination of any migration policy that leads to the erasure of our people's identity. And will pursue a national policy aimed at strengthening Russian civilization and ensuring its existence for as long as the world exists. Excuse me. So right here, literally today, like last year, you have an archbishop saying this, speaking this way. So this isn't just a sentiment amongst, dead priests, quote unquote, like the pagans like to say. No, this is a sentiment that exists today. And the guys over at World War Now, they post, there's other quotes like this, very similar by current archbishops and other leadership in the church and synods, like we just saw with the 2000 Russian synod. So this is very clearly something consistent with orthodoxy.
Oh, Ben, why are you weaponizing the saints? Are you weaponizing the church for political gain?
No, I'm just reading quotes, dude. Cut me some slack. I'm just reading quotes. What do you want me to do? You want me to not read the quotes? I pointed this out last stream. People come after me saying I'm weaponizing the church. If I wasn't reading the quotes, you guys would accuse me of going rogue and saying this is incompatible with orthodoxy. I'm literally just reading quotes. I'm reading policies verbatim. That's what I'm doing. So, like, I don't know what else these people want from me. I think it's just that they don't like what I'm saying. So they're going to attack me from every front they can. And they're going to accuse me of weaponizing the church. When in fact, I'm actually submitting myself to the church's views. Because a lot of these weren't my views before I became Orthodox. And then simultaneously, I'm seeing my people's heritage being replaced, being deracinated by foreign entities. I again ask, for those that say this is not Christian, that what I'm advocating for is not Christian, is it the Christian thing to do to let third worlders come into my country, rape our women and children, replace our entire cultural heritage, replace our entire racial heritage, replace our entire religious heritage? Because that's what's happening. And to those of you that are non-white Christians that ask me, what about me? What about me? Listen, the analogy I like to give is like if my house was in the middle of getting robbed, and I'm like literally in the middle of like dealing with my house getting robbed, like I'm having to like fight off these robbers in my home, and a homeless guy while I'm doing this comes up and asks me for help while I'm in the middle of my home getting invaded. That's how I feel. That's how I feel about the non-white Christians that like to basically, insert themselves into the situation. Okay? Like, I promise I'm going to take care of you guys. I promise. But right now I'm dealing with a state of emergency that you guys don't like either. Because, by the way, I have a lot of non-white Christian brothers and sisters who reach out to me and say they are tired. They are tired of these nations that they're coming to, that they recognize have superior culture. They're tired of those cultures being replaced. Like, a lot of people that come here actually do come here wanting a white Christian majority country. And they understand that just because they are a minority there doesn't mean they're a second-class citizen, especially if they assimilate to the nation. See, that's what most of these people understand. That's what most of them understand. So all I'm asking for is let me do my thing. You want these Muslims gone? You want these freaking Hindu Indians gone? You want the H-1B program gone so that they stop taking our jobs, working for less? You got to let me do my thing, man. You got to let me do my thing. Nobody wants, I don't know any Christian who wants to go to a mall and see nothing but freaking hijabs everywhere. I don't know any Christian who wants that. And yet, many of you are counter-signaling me when I'm trying to be the one to get rid of it. I'm trying to be the one to talk about this issue. And yeah, I'm getting called racist. Yeah, I'm getting called hateful. I don't care. And actually, I think you agree it is in your best interest, though even those of you that are calling me racist, those of you that are calling me these names, you actually subconsciously know it's in your best interest. because you don't like it either. And I know because I have people that have countersignaled me that have reached out and apologized because they realized how bad the problem was getting. So trust me, I promise I'm not hateful. I have made my position very clear that I love all peoples of all races equally because they're all created in the image of God. Nobody denies that. I do not deny that. But I believe in homogeneity. I believe that America has an identity that is, yes, rooted in blood and religion and its land and its culture, all of those things. America is not an idea. Vivek Ramaswamy, get the hell out of my country. Get the hell out of my country with that subversive nonsense. It's not an idea. It is a people. And we have ideas, but our national identity is not an idea. If you replace all of America with a bunch of Indians who just held to America's idea, it wouldn't be America anymore. And it is absurd that you think that's the case. So this is where we're at with this issue. And I don't even listen, you don't have to agree with me. I'm asking you to see to my brother, this is my appeal to my brothers and sisters in the Christian faith. Whether you be Orthodox or High Church Protestant Roman Catholic, primarily my Orthodox brothers and sisters who I share the cup with every Sunday. I'm not asking you to agree with me. I would love if you did agree with me. It's okay if you don't. I'm asking you to understand where I'm coming from. That's what I'm asking for. Can you understand that if your homeland, if your people were being replaced or becoming minorities, imagine if you're Lebanese, for example, and a bunch of Turks came into Lebanon and maintained their Turkish heritage, brought all of their cultural practices, refused to assimilate, and then called you hateful for pointing it out. That's what's happening right now in my home country here in America. That's what's happening. So you don't have to agree with me, but please understand where I'm coming from, because I don't want there to be animosity with my brothers and sisters in Christ. That is the last thing I want. See, that's what John 17 really is about. When Christ, it's not about ecumenism. It's about us being of one mind. The phronema. And that's why I see it as so important for me to cite Orthodox saints, Orthodox policies, because guess what? That's the phronema. That is the one mind, which has kept us one church for 1,000 years without the Pope. Without the Pope, we've been able to maintain our status as one church for the last 1,000 years. Why? We've been scattered across the entire world. We've been brutally persecuted by both the Ottomans and the Soviets. We've barely been able to breathe. And yet somehow we've maintained unity as one church. Why? Because of the phronema, because of our way of thinking, the Orthodox way of thinking. That's why we're one. That's ultimately what makes us one when we approach the chalice, is the phronema. So I desire that. I desire for unity with my brothers and sisters in the Orthodox faith. I really do. Yeah, so I guess I have to clarify my position, because comments are because I called Protestants, Roman Catholics, brothers and sisters in Christ. Like I said, it's a different category. So I can show you there are saints who have talked about how baptism in the name of the Trinity is a specific category. It's a real thing. There is a distinction between someone who is a Trinitarian and has been baptized in a Trinitarian formula and someone who has not. Now, does that mean they're part of the church? They're in the church? No, that's not what that means. That's not what that means. I like to sort of say it's like little c Christian. I see you guys as a political ally, certainly. In the most formal sense, no, they're not. They're not brothers and sisters in Christ. In the most formal, strict sense, no. But they are allies. They do love our Savior. I think many of them are genuine. And this sentiment is expressed in many of our saints. So it's not ecumenism. I'm not advocating for ecumenism. They must submit and become Orthodox to truly be brothers and sisters in the faith. Yes, this is a good comment here. There's no such thing as Christian denominations. We can colloquially call others Christian, but not in the fullest sense of the term. Exactly. Thank you. All right. I'm going to go over super chats. This has been a great stream, I think, guys. In fact, I think this was my favorite stream. So thank you for tuning in. Katie says, more Orthodox Christians need to look into pursuing politics. We need people with good morals. Amen. Amen. And that's the thing is like, hey, even if you disagree with a lot of what I'm saying, perhaps you can recognize that I'm a significant ally against all the things that you... So even if you disagree with me on immigration, right? The 90% of you, 95% of you agree with me on eliminating foreign interest. You agree with me on Christian values in society. You agree with me on pro-life, extremely strong pro-life position. So this is the thing, is like we have these little disputes, and to me, immigration is not little. But maybe to you, it's you're offended or whatever. Perhaps as I get into politics, perhaps maybe you can support me just in the name of, hey, I recognize that I agree with you on like literally 99% of things. Literally 99%. So, you don't have to agree with everything to support me. And as if you're an Orthodox and I agree with you on 99% of things, I would support you because you're Orthodox and because we agree on most of the core things. Yep, I do trim the intro every time. It just takes a bit. So it takes a little bit for it to reflect. Thank you for the super chat. It does take a little bit for it to reflect on the actual video, and it takes a minute for me to be able to edit it. But if you go back and look, all of the intros are edited out of my streams. It just takes a bit for it to reflect. Thanks for it looks like no comment on this one. Thank you for the super chat there. Angry Birds movies about migration replacement. I'm not familiar with that. I'll have to look into that. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. W stream, many need to grow a backbone. We are going against big money. Insults can't be enough to stop us. Yeah, exactly. That's an important thing too. You know, I like to give the analogy of like with Elijah and how he treated the prophets of Baal. I mean, we are literally the United States leadership is in many ways the prophets of Baal. Like that's who we're up against. And it's Baal that's behind them. It's Baal and his demons that are behind them. And so we need to treat them appropriately. And if you look at the way Elijah spoke to them and how he dealt with them, that would be more akin to how we need to be dealing. And it's how Christ dealt with the Second Temple Jewish institution in the first century. He called them a brood of vipers. He called them the sons of Satan. So there's people that tell me I need to be more loving. All I'm doing is I'm emulating these things I see in Scripture. St. Paul literally calls people dogs. He calls the Judaizers dogs. He tells them to castrate themselves. About the Cretans, he calls them gluttons. He literally called them fat. Like, this is in the Bible. This is in the Scripture. So It's not unheard of, and I would say that it is proportionate to the enemy that we're dealing with right now, because we are dealing with demons. That's what we're dealing with. This battle is not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, the rulers of the world. That's demons. That's what we're dealing with. And so my rhetoric is proportionate to the enemy I'm combating. And it's in the Bible. It's in our saints. So, all this to say, you can accuse me of being unloving, but you're going to have to say the same about Elijah. You're going to have to say the same about Christ. You're going to have to say the same about St. Paul. You're going to have to say the same about many of our saints. Am I a saint? No, far from it. But we're supposed to emulate the saints, are we not? And I love when people say that. They're like, well, you're not a saint. Yeah, amen. I am the worst of sinners, literally. But here's the thing. If the saints didn't do it, you would be saying, well, we're supposed to emulate the saints, so you shouldn't be doing this because the saints didn't do it. But because the saints did do it, and I referenced this, the saints did do it, now I hear the response, oh, well, you're not a saint. So it's a catch-22. I can't win. Again, I can't win. It seems like no matter what I do, I can't win. So I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. And pray for me. Pray for me. I love you guys. This has been a great stream. I appreciate the support. Please sign up for memberships. If you're interested in any of my debate material, or if you're interested in my private member-only streams, and then also I'll follow you back on social media so I can actually engage with your DMs in priority, because I get literally probably a dozen DMs a day, and I can't go through all of them, so I can give you priority if you're one of my members. So all that being said, yes, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. Amen. Christ is risen. This was an excellent stream, I think. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll be back on Thursday with a react stream for debate. I haven't chosen a debate to react to yet. Eventually, I want to get Erhan on here to to react to his debate with Agan. But yeah, please, if you're watching the video back, please like and subscribe. Sign up for memberships if you're interested. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And I'm at Real Ben Michael on all platforms, especially active on Instagram and Twitter. That being said, love you guys, and we'll see you Thursday.